In this video, I'm going to show you how to cut the cross halving joint. Here's all the tools you need to do it. So to cut this joint, you're going to need a ruler, pencil, marking knife, engineer's square, mallet, marking gauge, narrow chisel, wide chisel, a saw, preferably with a cross-cut pattern on it, but that's not essential, and optionally a router plane. All of these tools will be listed in the description below, but I can sometimes be a little bit flash with my tools, and so I'll put a few budget alternatives down there as well. Right, so to kick things off with this joint, we're just going to start with a face side and a face edge. So this is indicated by this fish looking mark, and I'm actually going to do them off to the side slightly because we're going to be losing all of this material in the middle and you don't want to be cutting away your marks. Then we're going to figure out which way we want to nest them. So light wood going into the dark wood or dark wood going into the light wood, and whichever way you choose, you're just going to scribble out the bottom of one and the top and the other. This will stop us accidentally cutting out the top on both of these, which would then require flipping this one round, meaning your face side would then be underneath, which wouldn't be ideal if you've picked this side specifically for the nice grain on it. Now let's actually get some boundary lines across these so we know the width that we need to start knifing. So for that, I'm just going to put this on here, get a square on the face edge, and then just get everything squared up and then measure to ensure that we're halfway. Cool, so we're halfway on there. Everything is nice and square. So for now, let's just do an outline around this onto this one, and then we'll flip it around. And I just need to do the same on this one now. Find the face edge, which is on this side. So then square everything up. Let's just mark around that and around that. So there you go. Now we've marked 2 lines either side of this waist and then 2 lines either side of this waist. I'm now just going to square these down to halfway along the edges here, because then we can scribe half the depth with the marking gauge. All right, and then next we're going to get the marking gauge and then just eyeball that to half the thickness of the wood. So it's just rough for now, because what we'll do is put a little mark from here and put a little mark from the other side. And then, oh God, it's spot on again, like in the last video. In theory, if this wasn't lined up, you would end up with 2 lines in the middle that you can then reset the marking gauge to be bang on halfway in between. But seeing as I've already covered the corner halving joint and the T-halving joint, you know, now I'm doing the cross halving joint, I've got myself pretty dialed in. So then with that marking gauge set, we're then going to reference the stock of it against the face side of both of these components and scribe the distance between those lines. As always, it's really, really important that you reference this stock against the face side. I'm not going to go into depth into why that is in this video because I've covered it all in my Principles of Joinery video, which is linked up here. But in a nutshell, it's just going to mean that your joint goes together flush, and it's just good practice to stay on top of these kind of markings. So let's scribe that now. And when doing this, it's always worth trying to do it in successive passes, especially if you can't see the line that well. Don't try and like dig in as deep as you can on the first pass, because there's potential for the marking gauge to start tracking the grain and it's not going to be as accurate as we need. So just do it in 2 or 3 passes. It's always nice. And with that same setting, we'll do the same on the other component, referencing off the face side. So now we've got the depth of the sockets marked out and we've got the width of it roughly marked out. We're going to change these lines into marking knife lines, which will mean that we can put a chisel into those knife lines and get a dead straight line, which is much more accurate than trying to put a chisel into a pencil line. If we think about this joint, when it goes together, if I try and knife around this top component onto the bottom one, that's all very well, but these bottom corners, when assembled, will end up at the bottom of the joint. Meaning that if this component is slightly narrower at the top and slightly wider at the bottom, I could be knifing around the wide section, which means when this is sunk down, this narrower top, which is going to be the bit that's flush with up here, could end up with a gap either side of the joint. So I don't normally do this, but it just suddenly occurred to me that this might be an interesting thing to test out, and we'll see what the result is at the end. So instead of knifing around it like this, I'm actually going to flip it over. So now I'm knifing around effectively the face side. We're then going to get a square against the face edge of the bottom component. In fact, I'm going to do it here. Get everything lined up with those pencil lines, and then we're going to very lightly mark around it. Okay, now we've got a nice pass there. We're going to take this component away and knife against the square that was resting on the other side of the top component. This will mean, once you've accounted for all of the offsets, these two knife lines are the exact width of this component, because if you try and knife around it like this, you've technically offset either side of it and it might end up a little bit looser. So we'll flip it round and run through that again. I now need to knife these two lines. So it's going together like this. We've got the face side there and the face side there. Let's put it down. That's the way it's going together, but this top corner is going to end up flush with this one underneath. So square against the face edge, and then let's flip it over. Then we'll knife up this side, remove the component, and then knife against the square. I reckon this is going to end up snug as a bug, this, but that's fine. Even if this does end up on the tight side, there's some sneaky things we can do with a plane, specifically with cross halving joints and also T-halving joints, to loosen that fit without trying to chisel away material. So depending on how this all goes, I'll show you that at the end of the video. But anyway, now we're going to get these knife lines and connect them up with this marking gauge line that we've just scratched on here. And this effectively means our pencil lines are now sort of, they've done their job. They've helped us roughly place the components on top of each other and knife around them without causing any like permanent marks. That's why it's quite nice sometimes to roughly mark things out with pencils, just to get your placements right before doing the permanent markings like this. Okay, and then we're going to do one of the most important parts, which is marking the waist. It's pretty obvious with cross halving joints what side you need to remove. Although it's not so obvious if you were to accidentally scratch these lines round to the opposite side. And that's why I go through that step at the beginning of scribbling out the face that I'm going to be removing, because it just stops you from accidentally marking out areas that don't actually need to be marked out. Right, and then we're just going to pop that in the vise, and then we're going to get our saw and do a series of cross cuts across here to weaken this material. The first one is going to be about 1 millimeter away from the line. So just starting the saw on the back edge, blowing away the dust as it's created, slowly lowering it down, and there we go. Now that we've established that cut, we can focus on long, light strokes to get down to depth. And so with that line now established, I'm going to do a series of cross cuts across this component, spaced about 1 centimeter apart to weaken that socket. And speaking of weak things, let's talk a little bit about the security that surrounds your personal data, because most of us think that your data gets sold and then you get junk mail through the letterbox. But the reality is much more sinister than that, because your current details, whether that's your social security number, your home address, or your family details, are currently sat on a data broker website somewhere, and that can be used as a blueprint for identity theft. If a criminal knows your past addresses or your mother's maiden name, for example, all of which are sold by data brokers, they can bypass most security questions. And so what's the solution to this?
Oh, lovely, thank you.
That's all right, no worries. Just try and do better on the next one. That looks a little bit ropey. The solution to this is to use the sponsor of this video, Incogni, because it's not just about stopping junk mail, it's about having a full cleanup of your digital footprint across the entire internet. They don't just ask these brokers to stop emailing you, they demand the complete deletion of your profile from their records. One of the other interesting features that Incogni offers is custom removals. If you ever Google yourself and you find your data on a website that you didn't authorize and this wasn't captured by Incogni's automated tools, you can actually send a specific request to Incogni and they will manually go there and request the removal. So if you want to wipe all of your unauthorized data on the internet and protect yourself in an ongoing basis, follow the link in the description and use the code ESTLY to get 60% off your annual plan with Incogni. Now back to the video. So with that back in the vise, we're now going to get a thin chisel and start chopping out these sections one at a time. By having all of these crosscuts here, it means that if you were to accidentally dive down into this grain, at least it's only happening in one section rather than across the whole thing. It also just makes removing all of this waste much easier. And we're just going to keep sneaking up to this baseline on the front, but I'm not going to put the narrow chisel into it just yet because I want to try and cut that with the wide one. Because the other nice thing about using a narrow chisel like this is we're preserving the sharpness of the wide chisel so that when we chop that line, it's going to stay nice and crisp. So we'll leave that one there for now and start working on this other component. Right, so that's left us with a bunch of rubbish in the bottom of this socket, which clearly we need to pare away. But by this point, we're kind of at the bottom of the saw cuts either side because I didn't quite get it all the way down to the line. And so all of these fibers are still attached at the end to the rest of this material, which means that if we pare across, it's going to get a little bit pinchy on the edges here, which might cause us to put too much pressure behind it and slip and maybe break out the back, or just, you know, unneeded fatigue. So what we'll do first is chop down these lines here that we've knifed across, which will then sever these fibers, making them easy to pare away. So for this, I'm going to switch back to my narrow chisel because I want to remove as much material on this shoulder as possible before getting the wider chisel and committing to that line. Once again, this is all detailed in the joinery principles video, which was linked up in the top corner, but I'll also put it in the description below. And I'm placing my line of sight so I can see along the back of the chisel to make sure it's chopping at 90 degrees. If you're looking from the wrong angle, you can't see that. So make sure that you've got it positioned nicely and then chop at 90. Nice, cool. So same for this other component now. Go through the narrow one first. Okay, and then wide chisel. Nice, right, let's start paring across again. So I'm actually going to start by putting it up on end like this, and then we're going to get the wide chisel and just make sure that we've definitely severed these fibers at either end. Because when I chisel down this line, if it's not cut at either end, there's a chance it could split out beyond it. Now we've still got a fair bit of material there, so let's just remove as much of that as possible. But I'm just going to be chopping down like 5 millimeters or so. There we go, last one. Right, okay. So now, just double check again that we're definitely severed. Yup. Right, chisel into the line, and then just a few taps just to separate the material. But you need to be careful with this because it'll get to a point where the fibers next to the chisel will start ripping away. So before they start tearing too much, you need to move your chisel along and cut them. Same here, it's got to the point now where they've started tearing. Relocate the chisel and move it along. And there we go, because we've severed those fibers, it didn't tear any further. Now we've got a dead straight shoulder line, can probably just work it down a little bit further now. Cut to the point where it starts tearing and then move across. And then it all just starts coming away quite nicely. Now the other side, let's just get rid of as much as possible. Okay, and then chisel into the line. And there we go. So it doesn't look pretty at this point, but we do have 2 dead straight lines here and 2 dead flat lines here. So if we remove all of this stuff, then we should end up with a perfect half of the lap. So I'm just going to carefully peel away the material with the chisel, almost like planing it away, to be honest. Right, so we're approaching the point now where we can start checking it with a ruler, and we're looking for this ruler to touch both of these outside corners without any rocking in the middle like that. So it's just going to take a little bit of trial and error, find those high points and chisel them away. And just note here that while you don't want a bump in the middle, you can have a little dip if you want. That's called an undercut, and it's a good way of ensuring that both of these joints meet perfectly while leaving a very small hollow in the middle. You don't want the undercut to be massive, you just want it to be like there. Okay, so if you want to clean up the corners, you can do that with a chisel, or you can just get a marking knife along there. There we go, I think that's as good as we're going to get it. Yeah, sweet. Right, that's that one done. So then we'll do the same on this component. Sever the grain fibres at either end, like that. Then carefully work your way along. Then put the chisel into the line and chop around 5mm down. Okay, and then we'll get it flat in the vise and just remove what bulk we can. Okay, and then for this, let's have a bit of fun and use the router plane for it. So this is a specialist tool that, as I've just shown, you don't need to do something like this, but it can be quite fun here and there. It's just basically got a flat base and a blade that sticks out the bottom of it, and you pop that on here. And it's not very good at rough material removal, but for final cleanup like this, as you can see, it just makes it pretty idiot proof. There you go, that's pretty much done, to be honest. Just got these corners to clean up. Nice, there you go. We do like a good router plane. Right, so there you go, face side, face edge, face side, face edge. So they'll go together like this. Oh, there you go. That was actually a little bit looser than I thought, but it's a really nice fit because when glue gets put on this wood is going to slightly expand, and so we wouldn't want it much tighter than that. But if you do find that the cross halving joint is a little bit too tight, what you can do is simply plane one of the edges of the lap to bring it down to the width that's required to fit it into the slot. That tends to be much easier to do than trying to chisel down one of the walls. Just take a few skims off with a plane and you'll be all set. So there you go. That's how you cut the cross halving joint. As always, thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please don't forget to press the like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and be sure to check out Incogni in the description below and use the code ESTLY to get 60% off an annual plan. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.